by way of using a percentage by way of our tax collection rates for purposes of calculating what we need to hold for the 2011 reserve for uncollected taxes. It's just another budget gimmick.
Anyone else like to speak to this?
Weren't we told at the last meeting that we had 100% collection on real estate taxes last year?
We usually do. I'll answer that if you don't mind. We usually do, but a lot of it comes in like now, and this reserve pays for the taxes during the year that they're supposed to be collected. But we have a lot of people who don't pay their taxes on time, and or last year we went to house sales, if you recall, and that's not what they call them, I forget what they call them, but where the property was tax sales. And eventually, like by this time now, I think Mary Grace said, we have 100%. But this reserve is put there like for 2010, last year's reserve was because we need that money to pay the school, the firehouse, everything else. In these economic times, I guess they're hoping that people will pay a little better this year, but it's a gamble.
Thank you, Mayor.
It is a gamble. Anyone else like to speak to that? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brennan?
No.
Ms. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mechanico?
Yes.
Mr. Warbeck?
No.
Motion passed.
Resolution number 52, introduction of the 2011 budget. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Discussion. Patty?
Well, we have the introduction of the budget. There is a tax increase right now for the introduction of the budget. However, we still have a month. We're still working on it. This is still a work in progress. We have the amount that needs to be raised by taxation is around $155,000. Again, the valuation of our homes alone, amazingly, has dropped by $5 million for all of Spring Lake Heights, just because of the economic times that we're in and the housing market going down. So, you know, we have our expenses are going down. Our overall budget, as far as our expenses are concerned, has dropped over $100,000. It's just that we don't have the revenues. So. The current taxes on the average home assessed at $457,000 is around $68. Is what this current, and again, we have ideas that we're working on as far as with our court, as far as with other things that we're hoping will bring in more of a decrease. The goal is to again have a zero budget this year at the goal. And hopefully we'll be able to do it. Anybody else have any questions?
Would anyone like to ask Patty a question, or?
I just want to make a comment. I mean, you referenced the economic times and the revenue being down, taxes go up, you're putting a lot of stress on people. You know, everybody else has to live within their means, and I think the government should too.
I agree. Can I just mention, though, that this is just an introduction. This is not finished. But we're just introducing it.
Tom, when we had the budget meeting, you and John just added increases to the budget.
No, that's not correct.
No cuts.
That's absolutely not correct. What we did was, you were suggesting that we hire a new clerk, and I think if you don't hire a new clerk, we could take that money.
We have a clerk on the budget. There's no clerk. There is a clerk already.
Well, in any case, the point of you accusing me of increasing it, or John increasing it, is absolutely false.
It's a statutory position. Every town has to have a clerk.
We have one.
You don't. She's not accredited. She didn't apply for
In
the
any
job.
case, what you accused me was of adding to the budget, and that's false. We moved money.
Tom, she didn't apply for the job. She didn't apply.
I'm answering your charge against me.
Any other discussion?
I would just say that I have, again...
Microphone?
Yes, speak up.
I think that this budget is fraudulent insofar as it does not adequately address true costs of our government. What it is doing is taking our debt service Right now, we have over $1.5 million in bond anticipation notes that are outstanding, that are primarily in interest-only payments. You are taking, you are reducing the amount of money that you are allocating toward debt service between last year and this year. So essentially what you're doing is you're putting off the repayment of debt in order to look good to the papers and to the people.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to add too, I mean, this is, to me, this is appalling. I mean, this is interest-only payments that the town's making. We're eventually going to have to pay back the principal too. You know, so it's worse than just a tax increase. We've got a nightmare scenario brewing down the road.
Butch?
Colleen, for how long have we been paying interest on our bonds?
Well, the
You know,
interest,
a year we paid interest?
the interest only is allowed for 3 years. Then after the third year, you have to start making
So
a
this is
principal
a-
payment or convert it to a long-term bond.
So third year, is that it?
For certain ones, yes, some of them, the open space note we pay down each year, and some in utility, we've had to begin to pay down on the principal as well.
So I mean, as far as interest goes, is something not normal there? I mean,
It just depends on how you want to deal with your debt. I mean, that's a tool that, you know, is used where you do the interest only, and then you kind of gather your debt together and go out for one bond to cut down on your costs.
you have to get the simple terms of it. I
can
relate
jump in.
I relate it to buying a house.
Mhm.
By a third-year mortgage, I paid the interest and I paid the principal. We don't work that way?
Well, this, if you want to use it as a mortgage kind of thing, your mortgage would be a long-term bond. Right now, you've taken out a short-term loan just to kind of bridge you until you can get to that mortgage.
It's like a rent with an option to buy.
But you could put the analogy,
Is
it's like,
that good, sound financial practice?
It depends on how you want to approach it. That's, you know, it's a decision. Some towns do it that way, some towns do it a different way. It depends on how you want to go about it. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. It's just how you want to go about handling the debt in the future, whether if you want to not convert to a long-term bond, which would be a mortgage, then you would begin paying down in year one on your principal to keep that at a lower level. If you wait the 3 years, then you only have 7 years to pay that off.
We are,
Rich?
Just for everyone's edification, a bond anticipation note, known as a BAN, is typically a 10-year instrument. The first 3 years, you just pay the interest. From the third anniversary on, you have to start paying it down until the 10th year. Yes, it is. That's exactly.
You
And a bond, excuse me,
You're out of order.
Could you let Rich
bond
please, excuse me?
anticipation note is a short-term municipal security that has its principal repaid from the proceeds of a long-term municipal bond issue that is sold at a later date. Essentially, bonds represent debt that is used until long-term funding is available. A short-term note, but not always issued by a municipality, used to finance some project, i.e. the Park Avenue repaving, which hasn't been issued yet, but that will be a ban. It is a short-term note until we bond out for a long-term bond. It always has a maturity of essentially 1 year because every year the interest rate resets. Currently, on these notes, we're paying 1.25% interest, which is extremely low. And quite frankly, considering where rates are today, right now today, you may want to consider converting these to long-term rates because you won't get any better rate. I would tell you that in terms of the next year or the year after, you may see when inflation kicks in, the federal government is going to have to raise rates. We may never see rates as well as we may see them now. And that's just, and it's not an opinion as to what I think about it. It is an opinion as to if you're looking for a long-term strategy, you have to look at all of these issues.
Mayor?
Yes.
So if the rates are extremely attractive now and we don't know what the future brings, it would behoove us to start paying down and start actually paying principal as well. I mean, in other words, what your argument is...
If you own a tent and you want to live in a house, what do? You apply for a mortgage.
Right, but what we're doing now is paying interest only on a
All right,
high
if
debt.
you-
So
but
what I'm
let's-
saying is, what I'm suggesting is this is like a credit card you pay only interest on.
That's not exactly correct.
I agree it's not, but it's an analogy.
But it's not a good analogy, in the sense that you are gonna have to pay down the principal on that eventually. A credit card, you can just run the interest forever. You could die with your credit
Until
card
they
balance.
repossess your house and stuff, yeah.
Well, whatever, however that's done. But this is a totally different animal, and it's not the same thing, and it's about having a strategy with a long-term view. If you're talking about paying down the debt, say we took this $1.5 million and decided to pay it down today, what would their tax increase be?
What I'm suggesting is.
Answer that question.
Yeah,
What
what
would
I'm
their tax
suggesting, what I'm
increase be?
suggesting is that not only do we have to find money to have, so we don't have a tax increase, we have to find other savings as well, so we can start paying down this debt. Because if we keep on rolling stuff over, we will get into trouble. A lot of municipalities
Rich.
have been.
Rich, what are you recommending?
I'm recommending that we have to look at all these issues clearly and not politically.
But the bond issue.
I don't want my
not
taxes.
really-
Excuse me,
it's
Patty's
not really-
speaking. Into the mic.
Oh, the bond issue is not really with regards to this budget. I mean,
No,
that's,
it's not.
it
It wouldn't affect
involves the
this
budget, but the bonding issue, whether or not we're gonna go to long-term, which is what I would suggest, what I would like to suggest is that we do a long-term note that we are, talking about buying equipment for the police and whatnot, get all the, facility, all the equipment up to date, and, that, when that bond, if we do a long-term bond versus a short-term bond, will take away a little bit of the unknown, because the short-term notes, we're gonna be paying, at,
Well, no sweat, yeah.
right? But if we lock in to a long-term bond at what the current, what did you say it was?
Approximately right now, we've got 3.2, 3.25 for 20 years.
I mean, it seems like,
Any other discussion on the
Yes, I
budget,
would
John?
just-